Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Amazing Race Rewind podcast, the podcast where we rewind back in time to watch the earliest seasons of The Amazing Race for the first time. My name is Andrew.
And I'm Jill.
And we are here to talk about Season 4, Episode 8. Jill, how are you?
I have an overwhelmingly long list of notes here compared to the last couple episodes. You know, season 4, episode 7 on a Google Docs, I don't know, it was maybe about a third of a page. I've got a page and a half here, so I'm ready to talk.
Wow. Okay. I don't know if I have that much. There was a lot of airport stuff this episode.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, so it was a lot of what's this team doing, a lot of different flight paths. Teams are kind of flip-flopping all over the place, but we'll get into it, and I'm just excited to hear about your page and a half of notes.
Yeah. Right off the bat, for some reason, I wrote long title. Because the title name was really long, first of all. It's a one about his grandma. But the title is a full sentence and a half long.
It's, the priestess reminded me of my grandmother. She was very old, but still very, very with it. What?
That's such a long title.
Yeah, it doesn't really exactly roll off the tongue. Probably doesn't fit on the TV screen and the little guide when you go over it.
No, I know.
They chose it. They thought it was intriguing enough, and we're going with it.
Yeah, so right off the bat, I'm like, this is going to be a non-elimination round. I think everyone knows it.
Well, we thought it was going to be the last leg, so it has to be this one.
It has to be this one. And this one also starts off a little differently in terms of seeing the teams on their, what do you call that? Their 12-hour rest period. They give a bit more time to it.
Yeah, it's kind of almost like they show like a bonding moment. It's a very weird tone to start the episode off. So Riken and Chip tell everybody that they are a couple and that this is their 1-year anniversary. And during this, when they're doing this, it's like very emotional. He talks about how he was in the Air Force and how it was very difficult for him. And everyone looks very uncomfortable during it. Like, it felt very weird to me.
It definitely did. I think they got better with it. Because then it, like, I think as well, everyone just kind of started to, like, after they said their piece, it's like everyone did a round table talking about their own relationships. And it felt like it got more and more comfortable, if that makes sense. Like, as they just kept talking as a group.
But it also felt bizarre because this is, we have 5 teams left. We're on episode 8. This seems like something that you would see in like episode 2 or something, where everybody's introducing themselves. It's like, oh yeah, John and I are engaged. It's like, wow, it's so amazing, you guys. It's like, oh, is that really some like big reveal?
And only now they're finding, I mean, it's so stupid, the thing of like them finding out Millie and Chuck are virgins at this point, like dating for 12 years virgins. But I'm like, at what point, this is my question, at what point did that shtick, at what point did the producers decide that was going to become part of their title as a couple, like dating 12 years virgins? Or like, was it this moment, do you think? Because they bring it up at no other time, other than maybe in their intros.
During the casting process, the producers already kind of have an idea of what they're kind of pigeonhole these teams into, of what their narrative is going to be. So I feel like it would have to be within the casting process. They're talking about being religious, and then the virginity thing comes up, and then that's just like how they're marketed from the get-go, is what my guess would be.
I guess. I don't know. But yeah, so they go around, everyone says that. I believe it's Kelly who says something like, well, yeah, John and I, you know, we've been living in sin, we're like, blah, 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 and she goes like, this is crazy. She's like, forget the fact that they're gay. You guys are virgins? Like...
Yeah, right. Yeah, so that was kind of, it was a weird moment for me to start off the episode. And then we get David and Jeff to just kind of wrap this all up saying, you know what, the race, it's not about who you are. It's about whoever the best team is, they're going to win. Doesn't matter. What's the Lady Gaga song, Born This Way? No matter gay, straight, or bi, let's be transgender alive. That is what David and Jeff were saying.
I wasn't expecting you to sing Lady Gaga this morning.
So that,
surprisingly
that's
poignant words
summation
from a team that we haven't heard too much from at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, so now that we're through with that, the race can begin with David and Jeff starting at 4:02 a.m., and they are told to go to, okay, I don't know how to say the city in Malaysia.
Kota Kinabalu?
Yeah.
that we're kind of butchering it a little
Kodakinabalu.
bit.
Yeah,
It's said quite quick, but that is the correct pronunciation to some extent.
to some extent. What language do they speak in Malaysia?
Malaysian?
Is Malaysian a language? I don't know.
I believe so.
I feel like I don't know anything about Malaysia.
Malay, yeah.
Okay.
The Malay language.
So they get going, John and Al, Kelly and John, then Millie and Chuck. So these teams they departed so incredibly close. Like Kelly and John 4:16, Millie and Chuck, I think it also said they were 4:16, Riken and Chip 4:17 a.m.
Oh, I know,
So-
they are seconds apart.
Yeah, so it kind of made me wonder, like, how if Tien and Jeree were that close as well, or if they were a little bit farther than everybody else. Because they made it seem like Riken and Chip were so much farther behind than Millie and Chuck and Kelly and John last episode.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think it would be fun if there were like more timestamps. Although I feel like that would just make it more difficult for editing, and they wouldn't be able to do things. Like
Yeah,
pull
because at
tricks
some
and
points
stuff.
you can tell the editors just frankly don't know.
Yeah, that too. That would be really hard to keep track of. Okay, so then we get to the airport, and we have a lot of airport drama here.
Yeah, so first off, Riken and Chip, they pull an interesting one this leg, and they go because the ticket counters are not open, but they go and talk to someone in one of the offices in the back. There's the domestic terminal of the airport, and they're still in India, and there's a domestic terminal and the international terminal. So they're talking to someone in an office in the domestic terminal to try and figure out the best path, because it's I should say overall, it's kind of a trip to get to this city in Malaysia. It's not a straight shot flight.
Yeah, so Riken and Chip are consulting with this employee in the office, and Millie is gonna decide she's gonna eavesdrop. So she's at the door, just like holding the door open, trying to like listen to what Riken and Chip are doing. But meanwhile, Riken is like trying to close the door on her, like subtly. But she's just like, they're just kind of like pushing back and forth. And they don't speak about this. It's just kind of like a unspoken thing where they're just
No,
like
it's kind of funny
nudging
'cause
the door at each other.
In the interviews, obviously that were filmed at the end of the episode, they're both kind of talking about it with a bit of a smirk and a laugh. So clearly they think it's funny. But yeah, at the moment, Riken was saying like Chip was doing all this work, talking to the guy, trying to like figure out a flight path, blah blah blah, and he's like, Millie's not about to come in here and just eavesdrop and take all the information.
But she did, and she will, and she would do it again. Yep, that's the name of the game.
She really would.
Okay.
I think it's over in the, is it in the international terminal or the domestic
I think it's
terminal?
domestic.
Yeah, the
because everybody's
surfer
going
guys-
to Mumbai.
Yeah, well, I find out they're calling the surfer guys the goats. This is the first time I've ever heard of that.
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
I think it's reference to their goatees.
Oh, okay.
That would be my guess.
Yeah, no, that's definitely it.
But them and John and Al, they're all in line at the ticket counter, and we've got some line drama.
Of course. John gets into like an altercation with a local about line cutting. Like not even another team. He's like getting into it with a local.
Oh, I know.
So Millie and Chuck and Riken and Chip end up going to the domestic terminal to get tickets to Mumbai with everybody else. So they make their way over to the domestic area. Millie's talking about how she feels like she does all the work. She thinks it's unfair when Chuck gets upset with her because she's like, well, you're not doing anything, so what the heck? Millie yells across the airport to ask John and Al what flight they're on. And yeah, John and Al tell them.
But while this is happening, so all the
yeah.
teams kind of seem pretty set on what they're going to do. They're going to fly to Mumbai because it's a bigger airport, and they'll figure out from there how to get to Kota Kinabalu. Riken and Chip try something here that to me, it's just, I don't even know why you would do this. You've got 4 teams on a foreshore flight. I don't know why you would go ahead and do this.
Yeah, I don't know why either. It's like, okay, I appreciate them attempting to be strategic and trying to like do whatever they can to put themselves ahead, but this was to another level. And it's a miracle that they were able to recover, spoiler alert, from this. So what they do is, okay, so they had a specific airline that they wanted to get on because they didn't want to go through Mumbai. So they say, we're going to get a travel agent. However, the travel agent's office is an hour away. So they have to decide between, okay, are we going to take a taxi to go to this travel agent's office an hour away, or are we just going to stick it out in the airport with everybody else?
And they make the harrowing decision to go with this guy to his office an hour away. They get there, it's not open. They have to wait for someone to come and open it, only to find out that this whole master plan, the flight they were supposed to get on, is full.
It's full.
The flight
it's
is full
available.
in every class.
Yeah. So meanwhile, while they're doing this, all the other teams are getting on their flight to Mumbai, and they're
gone. Yeah, they're
dilly dallying at this travel agency. So it was very risky and not the correct move to make, because I guess you want to get ahead, but at the same time, it's always safer to stay with the pack.
No, and I mean, I will applaud them though. Despite everything that happens and the huge blunders, at this point I was like, okay, they're going to be last. They're not going to be eliminated because it's obviously going to be a non-elimination, but they're going to be last, maybe by a significant amount of time.
Absolutely.
But neither of them, at least that were shown, there's no arguing. There's they both just kind of accept the error and just move on. They're not mad at each other. There's no big blow up. But either way, they take it in stride. But yeah, it was arguably one of the largest blunders we've ever seen on the race.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. So all other teams arrive to Mumbai and they're scrambling. They disperse throughout the airport trying to get flights.
Oh my gosh.
So
the music is so intense.
It was really intense, yeah. Millie and Chuck and Kelly and John get on the same flight and they're going to go through Singapore. John and Al are going through Kuala Lumpur. And David and Jeff are also going through Singapore, but it's a different flight than the other teams.
Yes, but this I think shows the strength of Millie's character, her determination, and also the dichotomy between Kelly and John and Millie and Chuck. Because while Kelly and John, I think their flight from... I'm lost. Their flight from...
Kelly and John...
They're getting on a flight to where?
Singapore.
Yes.
So they have their layover in Singapore. That's where they have the big 8
So they
hours
get
or
to
whatever.
Singapore, Kelly and John, Millie and Chuck. And their flight out to Malaysia is 8 hours away. Kelly and John decide to sleep on the floor, get some rest. They're just going to lay low, take it easy. And Millie says, that's not good enough. There has to be an earlier flight. And she is running around like a madwoman, trying whatever she can try to get a different flight, a better flight. And it pays off.
Yes, yeah. And she's so frantically calling and doing whatever she can. And then they pan over to Kelly and John just sleeping peacefully while Millie's running around with her a head from a chicken cut off.
And it's so funny too, because later Kelly and John, when they wake up the next morning and the surfer guys come in, I keep calling them the surfer guys, the goats, whatever, they come in and they're asking Kelly and John about this, and John's making fun of Millie. He's like, oh yeah, she was running around here like a little jackrabbit or whatever. They're making fun of her, but yet her and Chuck are gone. Their flight has already left.
They're gone. Yeah, where did they go? Oh, we don't know. But okay, so this is interesting because in the end, I don't know if this was truly worth it for Millie and Chuck losing the sleep that they did from this, because the lack of sleep really does catch up to them. So it is kind of an interesting conversation to have of, is it better to stay up and plan ahead to see if you can get ahead, or to maybe be a little bit more conservative and try and get your sleep so that you can function at a fuller capacity? That
doesn't really, I wouldn't say that one comes into play in this episode as much, because it's kind of, seem to have 2 or 3 nights of really no sleep, which catches up to them. But it is an interesting foreshadow, if we can say that.
Yes.
Also, we should mention at this point too that Riken and Chip have completely flipped their luck, and now the goats and Kelly and John, who think they're sitting pretty, are behind. They're kind of in last.
Yeah, I don't know how this happened. All of a sudden, they're on their way to Kuala Lumpur, and they're with John and Al and Millie and Chuck on the first flight to Malaysia.
Yeah.
So they came out on top somehow.
So their blunder ends up not being too much of a blunder, but yeah, some interesting decisions from all teams around this episode, really.
Yeah, it was a really long airport segment, a lot of different flight paths, but we do end up in Malaysia with John and Al, Millie and Chuck, and Riken and Chip being the first to arrive, and they were told to go to the Monso Piad cultural village to receive a traditional Malaysian good luck blessing and their next clue.
Yes. So, not much really happens. Like we said, Millie and Chuck, John and Al, Riken and Chip all kind of get there at the same time. They get to this blessing minutes apart. I do like the difference in opinion on the blessing between someone like Millie and Chuck and John and Al. Like, Millie and Chuck are like paranoid about it, whereas John and Al are really like, they're like, it's beautiful, it was really nice. Just a very different opinion.
Everybody, like, all the teams talked about, like, how incredible it was, how awesome. And then, Millie and Chuck are very uneasy and skeptical. Millie says, like, because I have no idea what she's saying. For all I know, they could be putting, like, a voodoo chant on us, which is probably not the best comment to make, but it's the how she felt.
Yeah, but it's so funny because they have that and then instantly cut to John and Al, who are like, it was very beautiful, it was very calming, it was just so
it was moving,
they're like, it was just nice to be there and to appreciate the culture, blah blah blah. Just total opposites.
But Riken and Chips, their taxi missed the turnoff to the place where the blessing was, so they were put behind here, so they get their third. And after they get their clue, you have to go to Kota Kinabalu to take a boat to a fishing trawler to get their next clue.
And then just to note on Riken and Chip missing their turn, they missed the turn, but they couldn't turn around because it was a one-way road, so they kind of had to do a big mile block to get back there. Is why it was such a big issue. But at the Kota Kinabalu boat terminal is where we have our detour.
So the detour is net and trap. So for net, you have to go to a fishing platform and catch 15 fish in the marked pens, which quote-unquote requires a lot of skill. And for trap, you have to go to a group of lobster boats and lug out these extremely heavy traps out of the water to receive their clue, which is within the cage. So the catch is that the lobster one is easier, but it's really heavy.
The catch is?
Yes. That was
what would you say for this one? Because Millie and Chuck get there first, and they want to do trap, but their driver drops them off at net, so they just stay with net. John and Al go to trap, and you see, at first I thought trap's the obvious answer, but you're watching them lug this lobster trap up, and it's heavy.
I thought, the lobster is obviously the better option, but after seeing, because I feel like we're most similar to Kelly and John, like, physically, and after seeing them fail, I think we wouldn't be able to do it. Yeah, no,
and here's the thing. Net would terrify me because of the fish, but you watch someone like Millie do it, and because it's, the way it is it's kind of this overwater dock with little square holes with the netting with the fish in it, and Millie just jumps in. Like, she's just like, because they have their little, like, it's almost like a butterfly net they're using to try and catch these fish, and it's not working, so she just gets in the water and starts, catching these fish by swimming around in there, and I would never be able to do that.
Well, because of course Millie would do that.
I'm just like, to me, this episode proved through and through the absolute dedication she has.
Yeah, she is so, like, unbelievable. I think, like, in isolation, just her by herself, she is one of, if not the best racers we've seen in the series.
I would argue she's probably the best racer. Like, she's so forward. No task phases her. She does what she needs to do. She adapts.
She's the fastest to everything.
Oh, I know. I think Kelly and John make a comment in the next episode, something about her being, like, just, like, those, like, stubby little legs of hers. Like, she's just so fast.
Spoilers, we have seen the next episode, but I guess her only con is the navigation aspect. She doesn't seem to be the strongest navigator, but we can talk about that when we get there.
I would love to see a team like Millie paired up with Zach from last season.
Oh, just a dream team? Yeah, Millie and Zach.
Do like a Millie and Zach versus a Flo and Chuck,
I feel like Chuck would play a similar role to Zach.
I don't know. That's true.
Anyway, I'm just thinking about some of the teams we could have if we just like plucked pairs, like single people, and like trying to put them together. That could be a fun little
dream team pairings.
Yeah, dream team pairing, or like what would be the worst possible combination?
Flo and Kelly.
Like Kelly, or like Flo and Jeree.
Oh my gosh.
Could you imagine?
We have to do
Okay.
that. We should do that segment in the deep dive. Do like a dream teams and like
deep dive.
worst possible
Yeah.
teams pairing. Anyway, yeah. So John and Al get their clue first, or they finish their detour task first, the lobster trap. Like I said, they are exhausted. Like they're like sitting down, sweating, panting. Like it was very hard work to haul up the lobster trap. But they are told to then take the little boat that's been taking them around to these fishing trawlers and go to Manukan Island, where you'll encounter the roadblock.
But I just want to rewind a little bit, Amazing Race Rewind, to Millie and Chuck's boat driver taking them to the fish option instead of the cage. Because this is not just like a taxi taking them to the wrong spot. Like, this is somebody that was hired by the show to take them to
I know.
the correct detour, who
Millie
did their
just
job
screams,
incorrectly.
"Not lobster!"
But yeah, she did say that the task was difficult because the fish were dark and blended in with the water, so it was hard to see them. And the fish like jump out of the bucket also.
Yeah.
Okay, but also Riken and Chip arrive and they get dropped off at the fish one, and then they go to the lobster one from there.
Yeah.
So I don't know, what is it that you're supposed to go to fish and then from there take another boat to the lobster, and Millie and Chuck didn't realize that?
No, because
I don't know, this was kind of unclear to me.
I don't really understand, because it seems like some teams that was very clear, but others, because Kelly and John end up at the lobster trap one, I think, first try. Yeah, I'm not sure. But
anyway,
we should add Kelly and John and
yeah.
David and Jeff are
David
still
and
a little
Jeff.
ways behind. Like, these three are doing the detour and they're still a little ways behind.
Yeah. So yeah, Millie and Chuck are struggling with the fish task, which is it's much harder than the lobster one if you are strong enough to do the lobster one, because Riken and Chip are able to pull the cage, and then they pass Millie and Chuck as well. But shall we get to the roadblock?
I think we should. So the prompt is, whose skills are most on target?
Yes. And what they have to do is they have to hit 3 targets using 3 different weapons: a bow and arrow, a blowpipe,
Yeah, 3
and a
traditional
spear.
Malaysian weapons. And also, this is set on a beautiful white sand type beach. It's a great location. I loved it.
Okay, so this, to me, I don't know if this, I guess this must have been intentional, but I don't know if they were doing a callback or something to the first season of Survivor. They literally did this challenge in the first season of Survivor, where they had to use a bow and arrow, a blowpipe, and a spear.
Really?
And throw it at things. Yes!
There must be.
And it was
were they in Malaysia for the first season of Survivor?
Yeah, it was Borneo, which is a Malaysian island, I believe.
I wonder if this is a certain. There must be a company that runs this or something there, like a tourist attraction.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah, but I thought that was really interesting, and I don't. Yeah.
But from this, who do you think is doing it between you or me?
Okay, so I think either of us could do it. However, you have more experience, I think.
Yeah.
With weapons of this ilk.
Yeah, I do have some proficiency with a bow and arrow.
Yeah, do you still have
I
a
have
bow and
2.
arrow?
Yeah, I have.
You have
They're
2.
both under
Okay,
my
yeah.
bed back home. Yeah. I need to.
Right.
Maybe that should be my goal for
case
this
of an
summer, is get out to
intruder.
the archery range a bit more.
And really trying to hone in your archery skills.
Yeah. Okay, so John and Al get there first, and they're struggling with the bow and arrow. They're really, really struggling. Riken and Chip pull up second. Millie and Chuck pull up third.
Yeah.
And they're all shooting bow and arrows at the same time. Nobody's getting this with any ease. But watching specifically Chuck shoot this bow and arrow kills me, because he's got it fully held out in front of his body, little like T-Rex arms, like elbows in at his side. He's pulling it back with no force. Like, it's just the worst posture I've ever seen in an archer.
Yeah, it looked very unnatural, and it didn't look very seamless or graceful. But it's like, okay, that they didn't give instruction of how to use it. They just said use it and go.
I guess maybe they gave. No, to be fair, they couldn't have given instruction. But I loved this roadblock, especially because we were able to have this 3-way head-to-head. Because you've got Millie, who's kind of losing her mind over not being in control, and Chuck's
Of course she is.
not doing very well. Riken and Chip end up getting that task first. I think Chip's doing it, so then they ended up passing everyone. Everyone gets the blow dart or thing, that task fairly easily.
Yeah.
It's the last one, throwing the spear, that kind of trips everyone up. And then cut back to David and Jeff and Kelly and John.
So yeah, they arrive at the boats, and Kelly says her biggest fear in the race is letting John down, not pulling her weight, etc., etc. Um, Kelly and John decide to do the lobster task, and it's
they try. I feel like
too heavy.
It's way too heavy for them. They ended up forfeiting it, going to the fish one. There's a good quote here where you mentioned earlier that it's difficult because the fish tend to kind of jump out of the bucket back into the water. And John has a line. Kelly decides that the best way to combat this is to sit on top of the bucket. And John says, and I quote, "Farting on the fish is not helping too much."
Yeah. Yeah, I need you to help, Kel. Farting on the fish doesn't help. But, so for the lobster task in general, I don't like this as a task because it's literally just you have the strength or you don't.
It's far too physically demanding. And I know that's kind of weird for the race, but the point of the race is that, you know, to an extent, the physicality matters, but it shouldn't be brute force and strength.
Or what they should have done is had them like a different weight for like, okay, the male teams have a heavier one than the male-female teams, and then female-female. They should have just equalized it a little bit more.
That's the thing, because you've got teams like Riken and Chip and John and Al, who are two teams of two guys who are fairly built, who, you know, clearly take care of their health and are able to haul these massive lobster traps out of the water. You got someone like Kelly and John, who are very, you know, lightweight framed, who, I'm not saying they're not strong in their own way, but it's a different body build to the other two teams that doesn't matter how much you work out, really. Like, it's just, this trap could pull you down.
Yeah, I don't like that, because like, it's either you can do it or you can't. Like, there was no chance for, I mean, maybe Kelly and John could, but it was unlikely.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, we don't like just a brute strength task. So, because that just forces them to do the fish one. Okay, so going back to the roadblock, yes, Chip completes it first, followed by John, but Riken and Chip kind of run aimlessly and can't find the match.
It's so
John
clear.
And Al pass them from there.
It's so clear because the instruction is after you complete the first task, go to the pit stop, which is literally a straight shot down the beach. Phil is standing...
It's just down the beach.
Down the beach. I don't know how you don't see him, but they kind of... Riken and Chip get the spear thing first, and they're like, where is Phil? Where is Phil? They kind of veer left into a bit of the jungle. So John and Al finish the spear task and just sprint. So, I mean, Riken and Chip are literally seconds behind them because they see John and Al sprinting and they realize they've screwed up. But
yeah, so John and Al do find the mat first, and they win a trip to Mexico.
Ew.
Compliments of the American Airlines website, which I thought was kind of funny that they put in the website in there.
Well, this was 2003? It's a big deal. A website? Yeah.
A website? Yeah, not just the company, but the website. So everybody go online and book your flights through American Airlines website.
Yeah, sure.
And Riken and Chip are in second.
Yeah. So that, again, it was nice to have that head-to-head, almost kind of face-off style task with the roadblock. Millie and Chuck Chuck specifically just takes quite a while to get this done. They still come in third, but it takes him a while.
Yeah. Yeah, so Chuck completes the roadblock right as David and Jeff arrive. And Millie is just losing her mind this entire time. And she says, "Oh, come on, Charles." And you know what? I've heard of Chuck being short for Charles before, but I don't understand how that works.
But there are a lot of nicknames like that.
Why is the name Chuck short for Charles? Yeah.
You know, Millie makes the comment about, she says, like, in these high-stress situations, kind of when there's a lot of pressure, that fuels her, but for Chuck, he shuts down.
Yeah, so they complete it, and they are in third place. David and Jeff are doing this roadblock, and the one who isn't doing the roadblock is, like, kind of giving pointers, and then the other one is getting annoyed with this, and we hear in confessional him saying, a little more trajectory, a little more overhead, more of a stride, jump, and he goes, shut up! not having the pointers. And Kelly does the roadblock here.
Not by her own choice. They get to the roadblock. John reads the clue. And he goes, what was it? It's like, whose skills are most on target? And he goes, Kelly's.
Yeah. So Kelly does it. And you know what? She does a great job. But yeah, John is like also kind of like giving her pointers or like being like, oh, just like trying to get her to get it. And she says, I need to hit it so John can shut up. And she does it.
Whatever motivates you. But yeah, ultimately, so David and Jeff come in fourth, and Kelly and John, they even make a comment earlier when they're on the boat going here that they're pretty sure it's a non-elimination round, which is a crazy mindset to have when you're in last place, like acting like it's gonna be fine.
Yeah, but I mean, you have to know that
Yeah.
it is. Like, I feel like everybody knew that it was non-elimination, but yeah. So Kelly and John are in last. Phil lets us know that this is the first of three predetermined non-elimination legs. Yeah, and I said, well, of course. Of course it is. So, yes, that is the episode. And Kelly says, I was relieved when Phil said it was a non-elimination leg, but I also wanted to slap the smirk off of John's face because I hate it when he's right. In that it was a non-elimination leg.
Yeah, and after this, there's a really intense kind of confessional from a bunch of the teams where it's like, it's so funny because like they're not going to know what hit them next week or like next leg, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, they kind of like check in with all the teams to see how they're feeling. Yeah, Millie and Chuck talking about how they're concerned about Riken and Chip and vice versa. And yeah, Kelly's the one who's just like, even though we're in last, we're gonna come in strong, and the other teams aren't gonna know what hit them.
Kelly. Sure.
So there. Okay, so yes, that's the episode. Do you have anything else from your 1.5 pages of notes?
No, that actually covered everything. I guess I was just really detailed today.
Well, good. All right. Well, that is season 4, episode 8 for you all.
Yes, make sure to...
It was...
Oh, sorry.
Yep.
I was going to say, sure...
it was pretty okay.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad episode. I wasn't the best, but it was entertaining. Yeah, make sure a deep dive is coming up. If you want to send us anything for the deep dive, ask us questions, send us an email, amazingracerewind@gmail.com. You can follow us on our Instagram, Amazing Race Rewind. We sometimes post clips. We'll always update you when we have a new episode posted. If you also want email updates when we post new episodes, you can check out our Buy Me a Coffee page at ARR Rewind. You can subscribe there, and whenever there's a new episode coming, either the day of, day before, I usually send out a little email reminder. And also make sure to, just keep streaming. We're almost at 1,000 downloads. We are very close to, 10,000 downloads, sorry.
10,000, yeah. 10,000. We're getting there. So you know what? Amazing Race Rewind World Domination. It's happening, you guys.
It's only taken us 2 years.
Yeah. Okay, but yes, thanks so much. We'll see you next week with episode 9.
Bye.
Bye.